Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, Lloyd. Thank you very much. And here we go again with another question time. Sounds like we've been doing this forever, but it's gone down so well with everyone. So I'm delighted for you. It's really good, really good.
Good.
Right, let's carry on where we left off, shall we? Let's do a couple of games, and then we'll have some questions, and then a couple more games, and finish off with questions. Right, after last week, the next game up was Herne Bay in the trophy, where we played at the Bay and we lost 4-1. So not a great day out for the town supporters, but as you highlighted when you spoke last week about the trophy, it wasn't top of your list, was it?
No, it wasn't really. But then saying that, you know, any game against Herne Bay, I suppose the local rival we had, I think regardless of it's a competition you want to win. At the end of the day, it's 90 minutes of against your local rival, so you're always going to want to perform. I think the Saturday game had been postponed, so we were touching upon the bouts of bad weather. So the Saturday previously was postponed, I believe, or there was no fixture that Saturday, so we rolled straight into the Velocity after playing the Velocity the week before against Ramsgate, so we hadn't had a league fixture. 4-1 it was, wasn't it? And at the end of the day, as much as the rivalry, as much as it probably pains Whitstable fans to say it, and people say it, they're a really, really good side. And to be fair, I had the bit between their teeth that day after the 3-0 victory we had against them in the league earlier in the season. So we didn't really show up, we didn't perform. I think we'd made a couple of changes as well. We were looking at a couple of players that day. Again, it was a way of us to looking at certain things and certain personnel, but really we were probably disappointed that losing to your local rivals is never nice.
No, it's always a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? And then following on from that, we were in the league to Whitehawk. We went there and we lost 2-0.
3-0. 3-0 that one.
3-0, 3-0. Sorry, couldn't read my own writing.
The first half performance that they played was probably one of the best I've seen in the league. I know a few people down there, and yeah, they were really, really, really impressive for 45 minutes. We couldn't get to grip with their shape. They'd ended up, their wide players played from out to in, so they ended up creating massive overloads in the centre of the pitch. And they were really, really good technical players to be able to play as well. So they caused us all sorts of problems. Not only did they perform well, I think we performed poorly for 45 minutes. I had to come in at half time and make some sort of brave changes, if you were, because I wasn't happy with the way that we were performing, and so I think we brought off our two wide players, and we ended up congesting their midfield, and just tried to make a bit more of a scrap of it without sounding silly, because we were getting really, really overrun. And the crazy thing is, and I don't. When you're 3-0 down at half time, you don't think that you're going to be able to salvage much. If anything, it's just a case of probably just trying to bandage the wounds, if it makes sense, and stem the bleeding. But actually, second half, we performed really, really well, and I think we hit the post a couple of times. I think we gave them a few frights, and we kind of walked off without sounding silly, thinking, if we'd probably nicked the second half, we might have been able to get something out of the game. And I know their management staff really well. I know a few of their players, and they said the same sort of thing, that really, it got to a stage where, if anything, second half, it was a tale of two halves. They scored their goals and won the game, and second half we outperformed them and didn't score. So it kind of, 3-0, probably a bit of a harsh scoreline, but as I said, the first half performance from us was they were really impressive, and as I said, they're a really good side, and took their chances.
I know it should never make a difference because it's the same for both sides, but from memory, my memory is a bit foggy over this one, but I certainly remember that the pitch there's a big slope, isn't there?
Oh yeah, it really was. I remember me and Paul Murray, as I said, my assistant at the time, and we stood outside before the game, and you could see behind the goal, obviously the stand and the stand, or the terracing, if it makes sense, that's obviously going to be level. So by the time you looked at one corner flag and then looked at the other, there was even from eyesight, there was about a 15-foot drop, and so it was really, really, really dry. It's been like that for a long time. It's the same for both sides. That's not an excuse, but it certainly is an odd. It certainly is. If you can use it to your advantage, then why wouldn't you? But yeah, it's certainly not one of the flattest pitches we've ever played on. Let's put it that way.
No, the actual surface was good, but
yeah,
as you quite rightly say,
yeah. It's just
no, I was just going to say, I'm a bit strange when I go to these away games because I just keep walking around the ground. And while I was walking about, exactly as you said, standing over in one corner, you were literally looking down to the far corner. It was an incredible slope.
Yeah,
it really was.
Yeah. I think if you
rolled a ball, rightly highlighted, they played very well first half.
They did, and I think, like I said, full credit to them. They took their chances, and we did. And as I said, they were one of the sides that we expected to be up there at the beginning of the season. I just felt that if we could have not conceded the goals and probably been a little bit more ruthless. I remember we looked at it. We conceded a set piece or two, one or two set pieces, I think it was. From our poor defending, and you think if you eradicate those errors, then all of a sudden the second half, it's all ifs and buts. But don't get me wrong, but they weren't sort of things. They were errors of our own making, and I believe that was the bit that was so frustrating with it. That like you say, the game was finished effectively at half time, when really I felt that if we'd have stopped them from scoring early on and cut out the individual mistakes, then we may have had a chance. But there you go.
Thinking back on it, they had a standout player. I think it was a number 4, not a very big guy, but he seemed to run everything, particularly the first half. Run out of steam a bit the second, but my goodness me, he certainly bossed the game.
I think his name was, I think it's Killock, centre midfielder, holding midfielder. I think he played for Everton. So he's certainly got a good pedigree about him. And they had some really good players. Is it Connor Tigay or something? His name is the centre forward. Dropped in really well. Henry Muggeridge he said he's played at Bristol City, so they've got some real good players down there. Let's not let's not hide that fact. But the way they played, and I know their management really well as well, and they do try and do things. They are drilled really well, and they are a really good footballing side. And I thought especially that first half they were really impressive.
They were. Right, and then it was on to Whyteleaf in the league. That was a league game, but then on to Whyteleaf in the league, and we lost that one 2-0.
Yeah,
which was a disappointing spell for us.
Yeah, it was a disappointing spell. Obviously, I think that's 4 defeats. I think we stemmed the flow the game after. Again, we stopped the run of defeats. But again, Whyteleaf were another side that you look at. I remember playing them last season. And they were a really, really good side with their 3G pitch that they have. They're able to, they've got a really good style of play. They're really, really effective, a bit like Cray Wanderers had, with their ball retention, the way they do things. But what they were able to do really well on that day was come to the Belmont, which isn't, as I said, isn't a 3G pitch. Let's put it that way. And they were able to battle it out and perform. And then again, their quality probably just prevailed. There was a few individual performances from us that I wasn't happy with, and as I said, you get on a little run of defeats, and sometimes it's just the head drops a little bit, and you need, especially with the young players that we have as well, it's really important that it's easy to go into the end of the game after a run of 3 or 4 defeats and start tearing the paint off the walls, but sometimes that's not necessary. I think we looked at ourselves not only as players, but looked at ourselves as coaches and management, and as united together decide or think, how can we get out of this? And I don't think necessarily. I think there's a time and a place to tear paint off the walls. I didn't think that was the right time. As I said, you would probably end up the young players as well. They probably end up going into their shells. When really that's the whole process was about not doing that. It was about being brave and to stand up and be counted. So I think results picked up after that, which was nice, and then we kind of went on a run, and you see how easy it is to get into a little rut of not getting results, and then just as easy as once you do pick up a result or two, it's, you know, everyone gets a big lift, and you can then push on from there. So I think it was just important to keep perspective.
Cool. Hi, buddy. Well,
Hi.
anybody paying any attention will notice that I've changed my top, and that's really due to the fact that we had a bit of an internet problem, but we're back on again now. I'm going straight into questions. Our dear friend Jeffrey, who always sends a few questions in, he started off again, and this first one's a little bit contentious, but nonetheless, it's his question, and I'll ask it. He's saying that he's thinking that the refs and their assistants should sharpen up their performance, and his suggestion is that they wear microphones. Well, I think that's a wonderful idea. It works so well in rugby, but how on earth it could work at our level, I have no idea. Anyway, so that's part one of one question, and then he goes, I think that a club should have the right to veto an official from officiating at their games. Again, that's a bit of a dark one, because if you just take offence at an official for whatever reason, you can't then suddenly want him blackballed, can you?
No, I agree. We've all had referee, or we all favour some referees, and we all, you know, and there are some referees that really, when they turn up, you sort of wince a little bit. But I don't think there's anything personal in that fact. I just think that probably you're always aware of, you know, good decisions or bad decisions from previous games stick into your mind. So you're always a bit. So, you know, if you see a good referee or a referee that you think is good, it's probably just because the fact the last game or two he's given you a decision that's gone more favourably, and, you know, gone more in your favour. So, and the opposite as well for a bad ref. So, sadly, I don't think that would be. I don't think that's right for the game to be able to sort of veto a referee or not. You know, it's not. It's more of a case of. I think they all do their utmost and their best to remain impartial, and the integrity of the game is key. So, sort of vetoing a referee or blackballing a referee, I don't think that would be yeah, I don't think that'd be right, to be honest. But as for the microphone situation, I just think it's, you know, in the Premier League stuff, absolutely. But sadly, at our level, the resources that we have available or unavailable would restrict, you know, something like that, so that option. But I spoke before previously on a previous video, just the fact that their dialogue, they could probably be a little bit more open to managers. But I think that's something that they're trying to improve on. Every referee that I've spoken to afterwards, or in the bar, or, you know, whether it be in the boardroom afterwards, they've always been quite open to suggestions and how they feel they can improve, and so they're no different to a manager or a player or anyone really. It's just sadly they're generally the target of some abuse, whether it be from the terraces or wherever it be, because, you know, of a dodgy decision. But there you go.
Got to hold my hand up. I'm guilty party. Sorry about that.
Yeah, me too.
Right, here we go. Jeffrey again. This one is quite interesting, actually. He said, I would bring back the back pass. Sorry, I would bring back keepers being allowed to pick up a back pass, but once the keeper has released the ball, the keeper cannot then receive the ball back again from a teammate until someone in the opposition has played the ball. So in other words, he wants to bring back a back pass, but once the keeper has played it, then he can't play it again.
No, I agree. I think it's an interesting option. I do remember it was. I was fairly young when they changed the rule of the back pass, and everything that I've ever heard, I've never heard anyone else, should we say, generally. There's always decisions that have been made or rule changes, and people then sort of kick up a fuss about it and say, oh, is that right? Back in the old days, we used to do this, that, and other. I don't think there's been many people that have turned around and said that the back pass rule was a bad rule to bring in. I think it keeps the flow of the game going. And the only thing I would say about that situation is that if a player was to keep the ball, if the team would receive it from a goalkeeper and the goalkeeper plays it out and they keep the ball for 100 passes, is then one more thing that the referee's got to be aware of, that actually, no, he's picked it back up again, even though the players continued for 5-10 minutes. What happens if he forgets about it? So again, it's not really a rule that I change. I would like changed. I think it keeps things flowing, and it improves the goalkeeper's technical ability as well, should we say, from their feet, because their inability to be able to pick it up. So not really a rule I'd like to see changed, but yeah, obviously he does.
He does. Right, this one is from David Weatherhead. Now, David's, this is all about the lockdown and the effect it's going to have on clubs. If the money available in non-league football drops as predicted, and the clubs can't match the wages what a player could earn in overtime at work on Saturday, does Lloyd think that the standards through the pyramid, and particularly at our level, would massively decrease?
Yeah, that's a good question. Possibly. I think we'll have to see how it's going to affect people. Not only the quality of the football that could be quality of the footballers that may be unavailable now, so to speak. But what I would say regarding players that could earn more money on a Saturday, I would say within people playing at the current level we are, I think there's probably a large majority of players that could be earning more money in work than they would do from football. I think that, as I said, it's a choice to go and play football and to enjoy football, and to, rather than, should we say, earning from a financial aspect. Now, I know we touched upon last week that there are a small majority of people that do look upon it from how they, earning money, rather than, should we say, for the love of the game. Again, that's a small percentage. I know a lot of people that could earn lots more money working, but really the choice is, do you want to play football and enjoy it, and maybe pick up a couple of quid that pays for a beer at the end of the weekend, and do something that you enjoy and you love, and the camaraderie that you gain, and the friendships you gain, and the competitiveness within it. I think that's something that's important. But I hopefully we don't see a decrease. I think it's all as in the level and the quality that will occur. I just think it's something that, as I said before, it's a position we've never all been in, so we don't know the ramifications. How many people, how many players? I think I heard Keith McMahon say the other way, the VCD manager, and he touched upon a really good point when he said that, how many players now are going to find out that actually they enjoyed staying at home with their family, so therefore don't really want to go and play football. Who knows how many people are going to come out of this situation and actually think, you know what, I prefer not playing football for whatever reason that will be, as well as if they are doing it for the money, if that money isn't quite there that it has been before, then are they going to go down? So I'd like to think that the quality of the football or through the levels will remain, because there are lots of good footballers out there, young, hungry, good footballers. But again, I think it's more of a case of just waiting and seeing, and hopefully once things settle down, it's hopefully not too bad.
Well, great answer. Well done. Very thorough. David Weatherhead would be pleased with that one. And another David. Another David. This one's David Godfrey. David's asked a question which really I'm going to swerve and stick this one to one side for our chairman, because it goes around the availability of pitches, G3 pitches and everything else. So that'll be for our chairman. But he does ask another good question. He'd like you to refresh us on the current situation regarding contracted senior players at our club. Okay,
that's a really good question, actually, because it's something that we've just got sorted. So the two players that were on contract with us were TJ Jadama and Dan Eason. I'm actually pleased to confirm that within the last sort of 48, 72 hours, we've taken up the options on their contract, so that they're going to be contracted us for next season, whenever that will be. But those are the two players, and on a contract situation that we have retained, and delighted that they're still here with us.
Great, that's good news. Good news. And the likes of John Ufer and others still around, obviously.
Yeah, all the players want to come back. I think I speak to the players. We've got a WhatsApp group, dialogue. I said I communicate them where I can, as well as individual phone calls and text messages. How's things going? Unprecedented times at the moment, as we all know. The fact that the season was cut so short, we are effectively just finishing the season, if it were. So it's still fairly early days, and the impact of we don't know when we're going to restart. I don't personally. My gut feeling is it's not going to be on time. I think we'll be extremely fortunate if we are, or not said fortunate's the wrong word, but I think we're all hoping that we do, as long as everything's safe and healthy. So regarding, so we say the non-contracted players, it's dialogue, communication until we're in a position where everything, should we say, settles down. Then we can press on with those matters.
Oh, thank you, boss. That's really good. That will please him. He's got his answers, which is what they all need. They like to know these things, which is good. Right, let's go back to the games. We've got another couple to catch up with. Strangely enough, the next two games were both Faversham. First of all, one in the trophy. That actually ended up 0-0, and we won it 4-3 on penalties.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Let's just say it almost goes to highlight that it's not a very good competition. This one, where it's like a round robin almost.
Yeah,
we only had a date of 104 at the Belmont, which is probably our lowest for a number of years almost, and that was at reduced prices. It was very, very wet. The game was delayed because of traffic delays on the M2 as well. So it was almost like everything contrived against us for it to be a bit of a dour game, and it wasn't that good, was it?
I remember, it's funny how, these are all how little topics that we bring up during these video calls and how they all link together, because we just spoke about the dialogue with referees, and it was the same thing. I think referees this day, I think they were running late. Yes. We had players running late, so the dialogue that I had, I'm actually scrolling through my phone, but it doesn't tell me who the referee was. I want to say it was Kirsty. Dowd, the referee. I might be wrong. Anyway, we had a good chat with the referee before, and we said about how the situation, she was as good as gold. The pitch was absolutely sodden, but both managers got together and said, no, we want to play this. Let's get, come on. We talked about the competition, the level of competition that really I think we were both them. Neither of us were going to advance in the competition. No. What we didn't want was another backlog of a fixture that we'd already driven to or arrived at. We wanted to play it. And to be fair, the referee said, okay, it's close, but I think we'll be okay. Unfortunately, the weather eased off and we were okay to get through it. But the game itself, I think, was pretty unremarkable, if that makes sense. There wasn't much going on about it. I just remember the pleasing fact that young Moo Chan come up and took the penalty. I think I'd put him on for the last 5 minutes of the game. A good young prospect for us. And when the penalty shootouts come along, I'd said to Moo, you're going to be taking one, and he sort of looked a bit sheep, or do I, don't I? I said, don't worry about it. What a great opportunity. If you miss it, who cares? There's only 10 men and his dog here, so don't worry about it, type thing. So, and then all the players got on him and said, no, you're taking it. We've got trust in you and your faith in you. So I remember he struck in a fantastic penalty, and that was probably the highlight of that game. But he walked away afterwards with a sort of big lift for the kids. So, like you said, we spoke about it before. It wasn't really my favourite competition, but there were positives to come out of it, and that was a prime example.
Yeah, I think I may be proved wrong, but you just highlighted something that sort of stuck in the back of my mind. As they walked off the pitch afterwards, eventually, because they celebrated because they won the penalty shootout, which was good. I think Tom Bryan walked off with his arm round him as he walked off the pitch. Which was lovely. Like senior players, young kid just coming through. That's the sort of thing you want to see.
I remember it was actually Tom. The comments that I just made, half of those were made by Tom. So when I said, "Oh right, Moo, I want you to take him one," it was actually Tom that turned around and said, "No, you're taking one. You're gonna have it. We've got faith in you to do it." So that just shows it shows the leader that we know Tom is, and a young player sort of taking that on board from someone who's been there and done it. He probably felt $1 million walking up to the penalty, and then $1 billion when he walked back after scoring it. So, like I said, positives to come out of that one.
And then the next game after this was a league game after losing a couple. It gave us a real lift because we were away to Faversham again, ironically, in the following game, and we won 2-0. And there was goals from TJ and Stannard, both in the first half. And to be honest, Dan was a spectator. He just didn't have anything to do.
I heard comments from their manager afterwards, and he was saying that how poor that Faversham had performed that day. Personally, I've said plenty of times before that tactically, when we get things right, we suffocate teams in such a way that we don't enable them to be able to play. And I think that really it kind of deflected the fact that actually we had played really, really well that day. We're great opportunity. Our link-up play was really, really impressive. The energy that we were to every second ball. Our transition were really, really impressive. So every opportunity we could to move the ball forward into an attacking phase, we got numbers. We got numbers in advance. Every time if the play did break down, we were back behind the ball as quick, and nice and tight and quickly before they could create anything. And I just think that it was a really, really pleasing performance. Maybe they didn't play as well as they could have, but I think there was credit to us that we actually made them look quite an average side, to be honest, because we performed so well.
Well, I think as sort of like to counter, well, not to counter your argument, but to sustain it. I mean, the amount of abuse, not abuse, verbal abuse, but physical abuse that John Hoofer took during that game was just amazing. I mean, I agree. He was chopped down all over the place.
He was. It was he was, and what a tough kid he was as well. Because the same was with TJ as well. Two young lads at sort of 19 years old, and I remember the lad Stephen Wright, the centre midfielder, really going through TJ one time. Did he get sent off, Steph, in the end? I think Steph.
Yes, I think he did. Yeah, I think there was a red
card. Tough, aggressive player, lovely lad, Stephen Wright. By all, really nice, but really, really tough and really, really aggressive. And those two boys in particular, they stood up to the task, and they not only absorbed it, they probably gave it back out a little bit as well, which is a good trait and character. That's two young lads don't go within their shell. They're going to stand up. They take a kick. Well, okay. Well, probably chances are I'm probably going to give it back at some point later on, fairly, I may add. But as I said, they weren't. They certainly weren't phased by the aggressiveness of some of the players. And as I said, they not only called they raised the stakes as well, if you were, and was able to sort of fight fire with fire, which was really pleasing from my point of view.
And although we were 2-0 up in the first half, we had a great second half, and then right at the death, Gillies, I think he hit the bar, didn't he?
That's right.
We kept pushing.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that one now. Yeah, you just reminded me of Gillies' effort that hit the bar. That was a fantastic effort as well. Outside the box, didn't he? And curled it in towards the top corner. Again, it was just a really, really pleasing performance from everyone. But I do remember our link-up play in the final third was one that there was something that was really, really impressive and really pleasing. Little step overs, little 1-2s round corners. Things where, like I say, when young boys and young players become really, really confident, they're the sort of things that they do off a cuff. You can't teach a player to be able to do those type of things. You just have to ingrain technical ability and confidence to be able to go and do it. And then when they were able to replicate that on a pitch through confidence, especially being 2-0 up, was really, really nice to see.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, let's go back to the questions now, and then we can pick up with reviews of the season again on the next one. But go on with the question. Right, first one. Let's just read this out as it comes in. Gary Carter. Gary's a bit of a lad. He loves the club. He's another one a bit like Dan, who both of them. I'm not going to say they're latecomers to Whitstable, but since Steve's taken over, they were part of the youth. They're both involved with the youth, and they're both now saying, this is what he says here. Tony, I'm loving the videos. Good work, mate. Like you, I'm pretty much only supporting Whitstable now. I've fallen out of love with professional football as such, and would rather dedicate my time and money to watching and supporting Lloyd and the boys, which I thought was a great comment. Yeah, anyway, it's followed up by a comment from his son, and his son is in Whitstable Town's under 11s, Archie. And he says here, P.S. you're a better manager than my dad, Lloyd. Is there any chance you could take over the under-11s?
Bless
Well,
his heart.
that's Archie Carter.
Bless his heart. Yeah, just touching on that, Tone. I know it was one of the videos that I watched back, and I didn't answer one of the questions fully, and I think it was from Ben, and it was talking about how we can interact the players into youth team coaching, as well as myself going over and taking coaching. I think one of the issues that we've said and we've touched upon has been the lack of training facilities. So we've been pulled from pillar to post as a first team about when we are training, how we're training, etc., etc. There's also the issue that I've got, sadly, of certain work situations that restrict me when I can and can't go. But it is certainly something I would like us all to be in a permanent base, whether it's the youth team training, followed on by then, older age groups into the first team. And it's something then that we're able to then incorporate and ask something, which I know they would do, the first team players to go and help with, or take part in a training session in some aspect, and can they help and talk to certain players, as well as myself being able to go over there and help when I could. So it's certainly something that I would like to see happen. So touching on Archie's comment then. Hopefully sometime, when we do get back, then I'll be over to be able to help out.
Well, actually, Archie's followed it on with a question for you directly to you. He says, when you were at Crystal Palace Youth and then Brentford, what position did you play, and did it ever change throughout your career?
I was a centre forward, so I was a striker. I was a young striker that used to score quite a few goals, and then sadly, as I got a bit older and a few injuries came into play, I wasn't quite as sharp and as explosive as I was, so it turned up to be, instead of a goal scorer, I think the old Whitstable fans can probably relate to Pulley, Ian Pullman, how he was a bit of a sort of sniffer goal scorer and looking in behind, and they were the sort of things that I used to do. Sadly, as I got a bit older and my body changed a little bit through injuries, I ended up being more of a sort of hold it up target man who just was a bit of an horrible sod, to be perfectly honest, as a centre forward. But no, I didn't change position. Just had to change, sadly, the way that I played, more through no choice of my own. But yeah.
And then David Godfrey sent in another. I'm not saying another as in stop sending them, but he sent in another one. This is something that you and I touched on personally at another time. This is to do with Sunday League players, or rather you allowing your players to play Sunday League. What's your feelings about this?
It's first and foremost, I think that there's always a reason and understanding between. I can't make decisions on. I think we're trying to refer to other clubs here, if that makes sense, and that's not something that I would like to do. I think I'm perfectly entitled to the relationships that I have with my players. Sunday League football it can be a purpose, it can be beneficial. What I wouldn't want it to be is to be to be any negative upon our football club, whether it will be a fixture overload, possibly playing through an injury, etc., etc. I think they're the only reservations that I have about playing Sunday morning, purely again, if a player's getting paid from a football club, then really I would like them to be in tip-top condition. But again, it's, as I said, it's there's a lot of players that play Sunday morning football, a lot of players. And again, if we're talking about this current situation, the current pandemic that we have, and we've already touched about, and again, I've talked about how all these little questions, they all link together. If we're sitting there talking about people wanting to play for the love of playing football, then especially during these times of the pandemic, there's probably people here absolutely itching to kick any football they can do. So there's certain players that will just want to play football because they love it, and who am I to say that they can't do that? So really, if anyone who wants from Sunday morning football, as long as it wouldn't have a harmful impact upon, my team, Whitstable being the case, then as I said, if they're free to do what they want. But like I say, I think there's that mutual understanding, mutual conversation that you'd have with a player that just sort of makes sure that you're in optimal position, optimal performance, and for the club that's effectively playing you.
Right, okay, before I ask the last question, I'd just like to say to everybody that my social media advisor has said to us about hitting the like button down there. And leave a comment if you would, that'd be really good. It does make a difference, so they tell me. Bit of a dinosaur when it comes to all this high-tech stuff, but apparently it's something we all need to do. Just hit the like button, and it makes a lot of people happy. Last question today from Jeffrey, and before I ask this one, this is not a contentious one by any means, but before I ask this one, just a plea to everyone, not a plea, but a call out to you all. You can see how straightforward and honest Lloyd is. He answers the questions as he sees them. There is no setup between Lloyd and I. He never knows what question I'm going to ask, and I'm quite happy to ask the questions as you put them to me. If they're a little bit contentious, I will change the wording slightly, but still get the impact of your question over. So please, by all means, send them in. So the last question today is from Jeffrey, and I'm sure he'll send some more in. He's talking about his regard for players and how much respect he's got for them. And he says here, high amongst the kind of players I respect are those who will come on as a sub, even very late on in the game, and still give 100%, like they bear no grudge, no wish to show any resentment that they weren't in the start 11, but give their all for the team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Do you know what? It's a really, really difficult one. Being the ex-player that I was, completely understand the frustrations of not playing. And I've done it, gradually as I got a bit older and a bit more experienced. I was able to understand that I've got to sort of keep my personal feelings and emotions away from, so it doesn't distract from the team. Because at the end of the day, as I said, you are part of the team, and that's the most important bit. So I kind of relate to those situations. If a player sadly has been dropped or is on the bench for whatever reason, but I think just communication is key. I've got, learning as a manager, I've gone through two different ways of doing it. Is it best to communicate people? Are there certain people that they don't need to be told at that time? They can, they understand it. Other people probably you look at them and they're a little bit down, so you may have to have a communication with them. But really, it's just making sure that every player is ready. I do look quite a lot of late substitutions for whatever reason, whether it's a tactical one to run some time down. But I expect my players really to understand that what we're doing it for is not just a personal gain; it's for a team gain. And as I said, they should be ready at all costs where they could do, because at the end of the day, not only would be letting themselves down, which no one wants to see, but I think more importantly, you could be letting your teammate down, which I think would be very, very sad. And any player that does that, I know if for example, speaking from my own experience, there was no one more disappointed than myself if I felt I'd let myself down. So that's the one thing that I try and relate to my players, that you don't let yourself down in that department.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to steal a little bit of Archie Carter's thunder, because going back to your comment about Ian Pullman, now when Ian played for us at Whitstable and he was very successful, he had a strike partner, David Corey. Now David and Ian, their link-up play was just brilliant sometimes. Yeah. Each knew where the other was going to be. Now then, I'll ask you the question, similar to what Archie asked. Did you have a similar player that you enjoyed playing with?
Oh.
Here we go.
Yeah, a couple, but one of them is going to be a guy that I used to live with back in my Crystal Palace and Brentford days, and he went on to be, I'm not going to name drop anything, but he said he went on to play Premier League. He was a partner that I had growing up for 6, 7, 8 years. He used to be, as I said, I was a player that used to be in behind, and he used to drop off into the hole, and we kind of complemented each other. We were both sort of workhorses, and our styles were very different, but they complemented each other. So that I would probably say that lad. But the other one, again, you've said his name already. And as much as I hated doing all his work for him and him scoring the goals, but when Puller used to score goals and I used to walk off absolutely battered and bruised, and he would sort of walk off without a bead of sweat on him, it did used to make me laugh, because, as I said, he was the first one to turn around afterwards and say, "Cheers for that, Blackie." I wouldn't have got those goals if you hadn't kind of worked hard. So Pulley was a great lad to work with up front as well. And again, you know, our style probably a bit like Corey did as well. You know, I know Dave.
Yeah.
And as I said, like Pulley was always the one that was probably grabbing all the headlines, but he probably needed a few workers around him, and he'll be the first one to make that to say that as well. So, yeah, Pulley was a good strike partner too.
Well done. Well, we've just finished up on a nice little one. I'm pleased I managed to sneak one in at the end. But don't forget, everybody, send in your questions at Whitstable Town, and Lloyd will do his level best to answer them straight for you. Thanks very much, mate. I've enjoyed it again. And
cheers,
we'll pick up again. It's question 7 next week, would you believe?
Whoa.
We were only going to do one just for a bit of a laugh, and everybody seems to be taking it on. So well done. Thanks, buddy, and we'll talk next week.
Cheers,
Stay
safe.
safe.
See you soon, mate. Good luck.
Stay safe. Cheers. Ta-da.